What We Make of It by Whitney Name. There was nothing like a small heart attack to wake one up from being jet lagged. Shiro, for both sake. Keith's knuckles were white from where they were wrapped around the grip handle. His other hand was splayed out on the seat next to him, back rammed straight. The car jerked to a start again, pulling out into the roundabout with a little more care this time. Don't worry, she said, through gritted teeth. He sounded just and on edge as Keith fell. I've got this. Don't worry. You're nearly pulled out in front of another car. I'm just getting the hang of driving on this side of the road. And roundabouts, apparently, it's not as easy as it looks. He snapped, then sighed, shoulders slumping in the driver's seat. It won't happen again, he grumbled. If Keith was being honest, he really didn't blame Shiro for nearly getting them hit. It was his first time driving on the left side of the road, but not to mention being on the opposite side of the car from what he used to. And into the mix, the fact that they were in the middle of a big city. And yeah, it had to be tough. It was a lot to take in and a lot to get used to in a short amount of time. He wasn't sure he could do any better. Still, seeing another car nearly ram to Shiro's driver's side window after he started to pull out into a roundabout too soon kind of put him on edge. He wasn't not exactly kind when he was on edge. Perhaps I should drive, Allura said from the passenger seat. Her voice was carefully even and a hell of a lot kinder than Keith had been. But she was dating him, so that wasn't too surprising. And despite her calm demeanor, Keith could see the tension coming of her in waves. Neither of them liked the idea of Shiro being in another accident. I'm with Allura on this one. He'll be alright, Shiro said, shoulders stiff and his hands tight on the steering wheel. His lips were pressed to a thin subline. I'll get the hang of it. After the third line, he nearly pulled out into the wrong lane or drifted too close to the side of the road. Allura took over driving. I wouldn't have gotten the hang of it eventually, he grumbled, crossing his arms over his chest and slouching in the passenger seat. Allura put a comforting hand on his arm, smiling at him kindly. I know, but this is simply easier. I have more practice after all. He meets her gaze, tension easing out of him as his lips curved to the shadow of his mouth. Yeah, I suppose you're right, she nodded. You have nothing to prove. Besides, you remember how I was when I first got to the States? He smiled cracked wider as he chuckled, voice fun. I remember. That was interesting. She grinned along with him before putting the car into gear, pulling out onto the road. Interesting isn't exactly how I would put it. Terrifying is more like it. Keith applied from the backseat. She chuckled. Exactly. So you have nothing to be embarrassed about, Shiro. It's weird sitting on this side of the car and not driving, Shiro mused. She laughed. Tell me about it. With Allura at the wheel, Keith found himself finally able to relax. The drive south gave him a much better impression of the country, whereas the city looked enough like any other American city outside the city limits. It was clear as it was nowhere near home. The rolling hills, sprawling farmlands, mountains that rose and fell in waves, valleys that dipped and curved. There were trees of every kind, some scattered and some clustered, some covering mountainsides and some densely gathered in the cracks of the landscape. A spattering of earth tones, greens and browns, etching out landscape occasionally, dotted by buildings and cut with twisting roads. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, and he was transfixed by it. It looked as if someone had put their fingers beneath the earth and pushed it up in random places, certain points and finger-lined hills that stretched the countryside, like one of those pinpoint impression toys. The city looked like a city, but the countryside was beautiful. A vastly different scene than anything he'd known. A unique version all to itself. Staring at the hilltops as they drove, he found his wanderlust acting up, an itch beneath his skin, an itch to leave everything behind, to be on his own, to run, to move, to explore, to get away, to breathe. Looking out across the foreign landscape, he could almost forget why they were there in the first place. Almost. Keith, you can't sleep right now. Go off, Shiro, Keith grumbled, voice muffled by a pillow pressed to his face. If you sleep now, you'll just be jet-lagged for longer. I don't care. Well, I do. He slapped Keith's leg. Keith blindly kicked him. Only mean open air. Shiro chuckled. I'm the only one who has to deal with you. You're not exactly a peach when you're tired and grumpy. Golf. It took them a lot longer to get to Taupo than anticipated. After getting lost several times in the touristy stop at Hobbiton, where Shiro had taken an embarrassing amount of pictures, they had finally made it to the town that hosted the New Zealand Ironman. Luckily, their hotel was pretty easy to find, nestled right up along the lakefront. After getting checked in and dropping off their bags, Shiro and Laura had walked down to the Ironman village to look around, despite the thing not being fully set up yet. Keith had opted to stay in his room and relax. He had been pleasantly dozing until Shiro had come bursting in. You haven't even unpacked anything. Nope. Come on, put your swimsuit on. Keith shifted the pillow enough to eye him warily. They usually tested the water in their wetsuits before the race, but they usually did that in the morning sometime. And Shiro had said swimsuit, not wetsuit. Why? Shiro stared at him for where he stood at the front of Keith's bed, arms crossed over his chest and one eyebrow raised. Because Corinne is taking us to the local hot spring, remember? Keith frowned. No. Allura mentioned it in the car. Oh, he sighed. You weren't listening, were you? I had my headphones on. Right. Well, that doesn't change the fact that we're going. Come on. He leaned forward and slapped at Keith's legs again. This time with more force. He swiped Keith's feet right off the bed. Keith groaned, rolling onto his side and shifting the pillow back over his face. Go without me. Nope. Come on. The hot springs will be good for you. I'm allergic to water. I'll drive to the hospital if you break out in hives. It's like you want me to die. Shiro slapped his legs again, and Keith hid a smile in the pillow. Get up. No. Keith, Shiro, now, make me. Shiro wasted no time grabbing Keith by the ankles and dragging him halfway across the bed. He yelped, kicking at his brother's grip until he let go and attempting to scramble away. Shiro came after him. They wrestled for several minutes, all flailing limbs and stabbing elbows. Shiro took Keith's knee to the side, and Keith nearly managed to push him off the bed. His victory was short-lived, however, because it didn't take long enough for Shiro to get a hold of Keith and digging his fingers into his sides. Keith yelped and struggled until he fell off the bed. Lying on the floor, slightly dazed, limbs sprawled, and breathing heavily, he glared up at Shiro. Hot springs, dinner, and then you can sleep, he said. But the diplomatic tone of voice was ruined by his vicious grin. Keith ran his hands over his face, crying, Fine. Shiro nodded, slipping on his bed and heading for the door as Keith stood. He paused in the doorway. We're on vacation now, he said, voice quiet and caring in a way that so distantly Shiro. He gave Keith a small smile. Try to relax a little. Have fun. I'm relaxed, he grumbled. Shiro hummed, giving it an infuriatingly knowing smile before slipping out the door. Keith sighed, running his fingers through his hair. His gaze drifted to the window. The hotel was across the street from the small grassy strip that gave way to a hill that tumbled into the lake. As such, Keith had an amazing view of Great Lake Taupo. He could see the colored buoys for the race bobbing gently in the water. A few boats sped across the lake, disturbing its otherwise glass-like surface. His eyes were drawn to the large copper parasail that drifted almost lazily above the lake, dragged behind one of the boats. He watched with transfixed yet lazy attention as the parasail dipped, ducking the legs of the parasailers in the water before pulling back up. He hadn't realized how long he had been staring until he had heard Shiro's knock at the door, telling him they were leaving. He had scrambled to get ready. When Keith was 6, he was adopted into the Shirogane family. They were kind of people who cared for him like one of their own. Their smiles were honest, their words were genuine, their love was real. They took in a child who didn't have a place in the world and gave him one. It was jaded at first, but opened up through time. He grew close to his new brother. He was happy to have a family, even if they weren't the ones who had given him life. When he was 17, he lost those parents too. It was then that he learned that life wasn't always fair.